relationship with China Aid, but also with religious freedom in China. If I was a Buddhist, I would have been a Chinese in another life.
他说，他跟对华援助协会和我们多年的联系，他对中国的宗教自由和就是说有特别的关注，他如果他是个佛教徒的话，也许前世的这个前世本身就是个中国人，华人。I thought you reincarnated.
Yeah, I'm a Vietnamese reincarnation already, so. I'm a servant for the Chinese people, for the Chinese church, for Chinese religious people in the U.S. Congress.
他说：“我只是在美国国会里做为中国的宗教受迫害者的一个仆人而已，公仆。”
And China Aid provides critical intelligence, critical information that helps us do our advocacy and our work, as well as the Uyghur Human Rights Project as well, and so many others.
对华援助协会，我们提供这个及时的重要的准确的信息给这个在国会的能够对我做出决策帮助。
But I need you to know, not only am I connected to Bob, but Bob and I started a project called the sort of Mockingbird Project to train and network Chinese lawyers.
All the Chinese state national security was freaked out when they heard this Mockingbird. Because
it sounds like a
CIA clandestine work. So quite a few lawyers last time after meeting with you, they returned to China. They were interrogated and said, "What's this Mockingbird project?" 当时我们设计一个叫
It's a famous American book.
Mockingbird. Mockingbird 是个什么鸟？
To kill a mockingbird. Yeah.
捕鸟。
捕鸟，对。
是德州的州鸟。这个 Mockingbird 叫。
So, some people look at me and I write legislation and help our members of Congress, and they say, oh, when you think of U.S.-China relations and when we talk about it, it's about, strategic interests. It's about, our human rights interests. But I want you to know that I don't think about the issues in China just bloodlessly. I don't think it as a strategic issue. It's personal to me.
所以很多人都讲到说，美中关系是一个有战略性的利益性的问题。但是我想告诉大家，对我来讲是一个个人性的就是我觉得是我个人是特别就是个关心的议题不仅仅是一个美中关系国家的问题。
I know pastors who have been imprisoned. I know lawyers who have been tortured. I know Uyghurs and their families who are imprisoned and disappeared.
所以我知道，那么我认识这些有被入监狱的律师，受酷刑的这个信徒，那么维族的受打压的他们的家庭，个人亲自认识他们。
There's a picture of a dinner of lawyers, some of the lawyers that we were working with in 2006 to 2009. And I look at that picture and it's Hu Zhisheng, and it's Tang Biao, and it's Li Hoping, and it's Zhang Tingyu, and it's Li Baiguang, Li Zhengfu, Gao Zhisheng.
我在我办公室里有一张相片有一些相片那么里边我看到的这些刚才提到的什么蒲志强、李和平这个李百光高志胜等等这些。
And I look at that picture and I say, people are dead, disappeared, tortured, so that a 40-year-old man looks like a 60-year-old man.
李春富他说，他看了这相片，他说每一个你看，一个受酷刑，一个受打压，一个40岁像60岁一样，他们被失踪、被死亡，被打压。
So I come to work every day and I think of those people.
每天我去办公室里工作的时候，我就是想着这些，看他们。
And every day I think, what can I do to help people in China standing up for freedom and liberty and human rights?
所以每天我就是在想，我如何能做点事情来帮助中国人民能够为他们为这个人权这个自由而努力。
And that's China Aid's mission as well.
这是也是对华援助协会的一个目标。
And so that's why I'm happy to be your partner and your friend, brother, and to work with all of you as your servants.
所以这是为什么能促使我这个就是跟对华援助协会我们一起这个努力的动因是。
So welcome back to Washington.
欢迎大家来。Bishop Tendero has been a great friend and really a fellow brother in Christ.
Well, good afternoon to everyone.
下午好，大家下午好。
It is my great joy to give greetings to China Aid in this opening of their office here in Washington, D.C.
我非常高兴在这里能够祝贺对华援助协会在华府的办公室开张。
I have known Bob Fu for the last 4 years
我们在过去4年就是认识。
and have really appreciated what he's doing for the church in China in particular and to other people also in general.
非常也感谢对华援助协会过去就一直为这个信仰受迫害的所做的努力。
And we know that as we help the church in China will be used by God in a very significant way in reaching out many other countries around the world.
在我们帮助中国教会的时候，我们也想到中国教会其实说对上帝大大的使用，他要去祝福世界很多其他国家的。
Right now, one of the largest people in diaspora are the Chinese.
在
people in migration diaspora are the Chinese.
就是那些可能最大的这个就是移民的群体就是这个华人。
And in many countries, they may be minority, but they hold the purse, so they hold economic, we would say, activities of a particular country.
就是很多的国家虽然华人是少数，但是他们掌握着钱袋子，掌握着这些国家的经济的命脉。
And as I have talked also with the leaders in the church in China, they are talking about how God can use them to be a missionary force in many countries around the world.
就是当我跟中国的教会领袖谈话的时候，那么他们也讲到说，上帝如何的要使用他们，祝福世界其他的国家。
And therefore, the more we really advocate and really help our brothers and sisters in China, we are actually touching the whole world with the church in China.
所以在我们去祝福中国的时候，实际上也祝福了全世界。
So, for the Chinese leaders who are here, we want to thank you, and we want to say that we are praying that the evangelical network of the World Evangelical Alliance are really praying for you so that the church in China will really be used by God in a powerful way.
所以对在座的中国教会的朋友们、领袖们想告诉你们就是说，我们国际福音派联盟的弟兄姐妹都在为你们祷告。
We know that when Mao Zedong took over China in 1979, there were only about 700,000 Christians in China.
我们知道，当1949年就是毛泽东夺权之后，中国基督徒只有70万人口。
And they closed down churches, they burned Bibles, they imprisoned pastors, they drove away all the missionaries. They thought that they drove away all the missionaries, and they thought that they can eradicate Christianity in China.
当时毛泽东认为可以通过关教堂、烧圣经这个关押基督徒的领袖，就能够实现了消灭基督徒的教会的目的。
So, but the church went underground and continued to grow, and the power of the Holy Spirit is at work, and we have seen the tremendous growth of the church of the Lord Jesus Christ in China.
那么虽然你看这么多的迫害继续进行，但是呢，却是在中国实现了一个巨大的这个教会的复兴。
Well, it's just like during the time of the persecution of the church in the first century, where the blood of the martyrs became the seed of the growth of the church.
就像在教会的第1世纪、第3世纪，教会面临那么多的逼迫的时候，那么殉道者的种子就成为教会复兴的根基。
We're not praying that there will be more martyrs, but we are sure that even in the midst of greatest persecution, the church of the Lord Jesus Christ will continue to grow.
因为圣灵的大能就说当然我们没有说祷告有更多的殉道只是说我们祷告上帝在透过这样一个逼迫的环境里边，
And
接触教会有更大的
we, their sisters and brothers who are in countries that have freedom, have the responsibility and the moral, we would say, duty to be able to reach out to them, to pray for them, not only to pray, but to do whatever we can to advocate for their cause.
所以在自由地区的我们这些这个世界基督徒们我们有一个属灵的还有道德上的责任来去为这些受迫害的弟兄姐妹与他们祷告，并且竭尽所能的努力来去帮助他们。
So we, World Evangelical Alliance, stands with our brothers and sisters in China and with China Aid in this mission of really becoming that salt and light to really bring the effect of the gospel in that vast country of China.
所以我们国际福音联盟坚定地跟对华援助协会和中国的基督徒站在一起来这个推进就是中国的这个福音继续的这个复兴上前。
We are together as brothers and sisters in the Lord.
Yes. 我们要有弟兄姐妹，我们是when Bishop Tendero mentioned about the blood of the martyrs and the saints of the church, remind me 2 years ago when the one young man, one young woman were sent by the jointly by South Korean and Wenzhou mission agencies to Pakistan. They were both kidnapped by the ISIS over there and were killed, martyred. And 1 month after their martyrdom, another Chinese families were sent by another church and just went to the same area where the ISIS was still prevalent. And then within a year of these 2 martyrdom, I just learned from a group of house leaders a couple of weeks ago who visited Waco. And they told me at least over 200 missionaries, 200 more were sent out after this brutal murder. So I think that's a vivid example showing the strength of the Chinese church, despite this massive persecution happening. Want to, Tony?
All right. So I'm actually much newer to this issue than many of you in this room. I started a youth serve around 7 months ago, and I remember in one of my very first meetings, I was actually with the Uyghur Human Rights Project, and I met Lisa. If you want to translate.
Yeah. 所以他记着当时在美国国际宗教自由委员会有一次这个跟见面的时候，当时路易斯也在场。
And she said to me, I keep telling you, sir, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, that you need at least one person dedicated just to China.
他说就是应该告诉这个国际宗教自由委员会呢，你至少应该有1个人是专门针对这个中国的一个官员。
And she's not wrong, given how much is going on in China right now and how worrying the situation is.
他当然是对的就是中国你看现在多么严重的这个宗教迫害的状况。
And this has been very overwhelming for one person to cover China, all religious freedom issues in China, and Indonesia and Vietnam. But I think I realized that I wasn't alone in this.
所以就是说他就变成一个就是说这个专门针对中国的一个项目的负责人
So I,
That's you cover, right?
yeah, I cover, I'm the only person at USERF that covers China. What I found is that there's a whole network of friends and allies in Washington, D.C., including Bob when he's in town, who are working this issue, and Louisa, who support our work with the Commission.
所以他是在这个国际宗教自由委员会，是国会的，专门负责就是中国的宗教自由的问题。他发现，在华府里边也有这些友好的机构也都在关注。
And so we at the Commission are just, we're pleased that the issues of religious freedom in China are getting more attention, and that groups in D.C. are focusing on this and are working together. We're coming together as a coalition.
所以我们特别也是很高兴看到，就是我们这个关注中国宗教自由的这些机构能够合作就是团结在一起。
And we're happy for you with the new office here in D.C. And don't take this the wrong way. We hope we don't see you as often, because we hope you get to relax a bit.
他说我也很高兴看到对华援助协会的这一些办公室他说你那个自己也需要多保重休息一下当然我们希望能多看到你。
So thank you everyone in this room again for your hard work in these issues and for your support for the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom.
谢谢大家也对这个宗教自由的问题多么的关注，我们一起来努力。Thank you. Did you say a few words?
Oh, we already spoke, but anyway, yes, I also am, when China Aid was formed, I heard a lot from both Bob and Scott, because in 2002 I was working for the National Endowment for Democracy.
卢伊泽以前是在国家民主基金会做副总裁，02年的时候，我们就认识了。
And Bob said to the National Endowment for Democracy, we need $1 million.
Bob 说我那时候告诉民主基金会，我说我们需要100万美元开始有支持。
And at that time, our whole China budget, I think, was 1.2 million.
那时候他们全中国的基金会的钱只有120万。
But you have to think big. Because
we
clearly the fate of every believer and person of conscience in China, to believe or not to believe, is critical for the fate of all of the people of China, and really as a setting standard for the world.
说我们现在所做的就是对宗教自由就是或者就是选择信仰自由，对是一个非常重要的一个事。
So it's very impressive. We all, and I know I speak for everyone in the Uyghur Human Rights Project, that China Aid is a Christian organization that believes in religious freedom for all. This is just a great source of strength and support for every other persecuted group in China.
我们都可以见证，虽然对华援助协会是个基督徒的组织，但是呢，心确实是为这个所有的宗教迫害者而努力。
So hats off to China Aid for devoting your energy and your network to this broad cause, religious freedom for any group depends on religious freedom for all, and for having this Washington presence. It's going to be a great boon for all of us.
Thank you.
Just to add a few words to Lisa, I think welcome Bob and especially China Aid to move to Washington D.C. I think we have lots of work to do. Since I just heard what you said about that atheist who's been detained in the camps and what that person has been through, especially the one point that really struck me, because the one that he's one crime just because of his neighbor Kazakh, and that really struck me, because imagine the Chinese Communist Party sending thousands of the Chinese officials into Uyghur homes to stay with them, live with them, sleep with them. Yeah. But why are they isolating certain real Chinese public from the people like Kazakhs, Uyghurs? Why would it's the difference of those Chinese atheists of the other Chinese Communist Party officials who's living with Uyghurs and the Kazakhs and all other people? It looks like we have lots of work to. Exactly, we have lots of work to do here. Yeah. That the Chinese government is very selective who they can live with Uyghurs or other people together or who's not. It's, to me, this is really strikes. This tells a lot.
Yeah,
So
so
looks like we have lots of work to do. You know, some certain Chinese they get punished because of they stay close with the Uyghurs or Kazakhs. But some officers get promoted, like Chin Chango get promoted because he's punishing all the Uyghurs for just because of they are Uyghur and believing in religion, and because of Uyghur identity. Thank you for coming here. Probably we have lots of work to do together.
Surely.
I am looking forward to read that material that person brought to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that Uyghur family, I mean the Kazakh family, the Chinese family was implicated after the whole family, you know, from children to the parents who run that grocery store, the Kazakh family, the whole family was sent to the concentration camp. So because they are neighbors, it became a natural suspect. They talk to each other. I mean, your neighbor on the grocery store running, so they became the next target. So that shows how cruel and evil it is.
And it also clearly tells kind of, you know, that this is completely experiment what Chinese government did to Uyghurs, and it's clearly tells that it's not just stay there.
That's right.
It's already
not end there.
already implementing to other people too.
Yeah.
That's another danger side that I can see from what you said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, thank you, President. Yeah. So Greg, a real boss. Real boss.
Speak?
Yeah.
Let's do it over there. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Mitchell.
大家好，我叫 Greg Mitchell，
I'm honored to be here with you all
我很荣幸跟大家在一起。
and welcome. I'm happy that China Aid now has a base here in Washington, D.C.
欢迎这个对华援助协会，我们在华盛顿也建立这个新的基地了。
I'm happy that Logan is here to help us here.
特别欢迎这个，非常高兴 Logan 也加入了在这里能够一起帮忙。
So I've heard the common theme through the last few speakers is that working together, the need to work together, the need to work in coalition.
那么我也听到前边几个讲员提到了，就是说大家一起就是工作的重要性。
And that's what I'm here to help with.
我这次我来呢，这是最主要的目的，是要把大家带在一起。
So the International Religious Freedom Roundtable is a big coalition in itself.
国际宗教自由圆桌论坛呢，本身就是一个很大的一个就是团结联盟。
You know, and it looks at like religious freedom situations all over the world.
那么是这个圆桌会议呢，圆桌论坛是对全球所有的宗教迫害。
And it's multi-faith, so it has representatives of all the different faiths, including atheists, non-believers.
就是多种多信仰的、多种族的，包括无神论者。
And you know, we've been working together. The roundtable's been around for 9 years now.
那么这个宗教自由国际宗教自由论坛呢，就是华府这个已经我们一起工作了9年了。
There's several participants of the roundtable here in the room today, which is
今
good.
天在座的也有好几位都是这个咱们圆桌会议的参与者。
And you know, working together like this to try to solve specific problems.
那么大家一起来工作，去解决一些具体的问题。
And we really develop relationships, you know, friendships and relationships and trust
那么
among the
我们
different.
同时呢，也建立了这个信任、友谊。
It's mutual respect and mutual trust and mutual reliance.
那我们是可以说是互相依赖、互相尊重互相这个信任。
And that's the power of this roundtable model.
这就是这样一个这种圆桌会议的圆桌论坛的这个模式的正统性。
And because China is like the biggest problem now in the world as far as religious freedom goes.
他说，对宗教自由来讲，现在全世界最重要的议题就是中国的宗教迫害。
That's why out of the roundtable we formed this coalition to advance religious freedom.
所以这就为什么我们透过这个华府的国际宗教自由论坛呢，我们成立了中国宗教自由联盟。
But we did this at the suggestion of Ambassador Brownback. He came up, he threw that idea. We had a special roundtable on China in October.
那么这个中国宗教自由促进联盟呢，实际上是布朗贝克国际宗教自由无任所大使亲自就是鼓励我们成立的。
And he recommended, you know, he thought it would be more powerful if all the different groups were working together in coalition with one voice.
去年10月，他就说，哎，我们如果所有关心中国宗教迫害、宗教自由的机构能够联手一起，有一个声音，会更有力量。
And so I went to Bob and representatives of the different faiths that are being persecuted in China.
然后他就找到我们这个很多就是关心中国宗教自由的这些机构的负责人。
And they agreed that we should form a coalition.
然后我们大家都集体可以说一致同意，确实需要一个中国宗教自由促进联盟之后。
So we've had a couple of meetings and we already had a press conference to basically announce that we're forming this coalition.
我们也前面有一些这个会议会谈，那么我们同时在国会山也开了记者会，正式宣布成立了这个促进中国宗教自由联盟。
And Pastor Brownback was there right before he went to Hong Kong and Taiwan.
那么布朗拜克大使在我们成立仪式上也去了就后来他也去了香港和台湾。
And Congressman Frank Wolf was also there, and he told me how happy he was. He told me that he said he was recommending that a coalition form for probably a decade or more, maybe decades.
Yeah.
So he was happy to finally see all the groups on one stage.
所以他另外一个是关心中国宗教自由的是前国会议员富兰克沃夫议员，他也当时在我们成立仪式上去了，告诉 Frank 说，哎呀，说我在国会期间就已经工作就说这个很久了，一直希望促进成立这样一个联盟，他就是看到各个受迫害的群体能够站在同一个台上，用一个声音太高兴了。
So that was a great thing to have all, you know, Brownback and then Congressman McGovern and Frank Wolf, they all spoke, and behind them were all representatives of all the persecuted communities in China.
他说那天是一个多么这个奇妙就是很高兴的事情。前边布朗贝克大使有这个沃夫议员，还有这个民主党的麦格温议员呢，他们坐在前边，那么后边呢是代表各个受迫害的，在中国受迫害的这个宗教群体的这个代表。
And so that was the picture that was in the media, on social media. I'm sure the Chinese government saw.
所以当时那张照片呢，是在所有的很多的媒体上，包括中文的社交媒体上。我相信就是中共政府呢也已经注意到了。
Last two things. So in the audience, though, there were other roundtable participants that want to stand with you all, with the persecuted communities in solidarity.
那么当时记者会成立的时候，就是在听证席上也有好多其他的机构的就是关心这个宗教自由那么他们呢也想跟我们一起就是受迫害的这个在中国受迫害的宗教团体坚定地站在一起。
So as part of this coalition, it's more than just the persecuted communities of China. It's everyone who also wants to stand with you and help you fight back.
所以这个联盟呢，就不仅仅只是在中国受迫害的宗教团体，而且包含其他的一些关心并且乐意支持这些在中国受迫害的宗教团体。
Perhaps the next precedent we can show that. We can show that image, where you have all the lots of faith communities who are based here, working here in Washington, standing with you all.
也许下一次我们的记者会应该就是说聚焦在这个就是我们建立一个就是大的联盟。
And show the Chinese government that.
我们希望让中共政府知道这个事情。
And then the last thing is, so we have the ministerial to advance religious freedom coming up in 2 months.
那么再有2个月第2届的就是国际宗教自由美国国务院召开的就是部长级论坛就要开始了。
And as a coalition, we've talked about doing another event during that ministerial week, maybe on the first day of that week.
所以我们作为这个联盟的，就是中国宗教这个自由促进联盟的这个成员呢，我们就在想说，也许在这个国务院开这个宗教自由部长级论坛之前呢，那天我们再专门开一次这样的会议。
So I'll be meeting with Logan next week to start putting our battle plan together, and then we'll have another meeting of the coalition to plan that.
下个礼拜会跟老板聚集一下，然后商讨具体的措施。
So thank you again, and I'm happy to be here and happy to be working with you all, standing with you. It's going to be it's a tough battle, but eternal vigilance. I'm here to help you all and see if we can win in the end here.
We're not going to be tired of winning.
Right, exactly.
So 他在这里呢，就是希望打气，助力。Marin,
yeah, sure. So I'm a relatively new member of the Uyghur Entrepreneur Network, but some of you might know me from my work at Freedom House on China program.
Marin 前是在利用之家这么大家有些人可能认识他，他就是刚刚加入这个维族乌尔这个企业家联盟。
对不起，我的发音不好。
发的不错。
So yeah, I guess we all know that the Uyghur issue is very pressing. We know what's going on there. A lot of us know we have the privilege of knowledge to know the particular challenges that Uyghurs face because of the stigmatization of Muslims in particular. And we're very thankful to Bob for helping us combat that and raising the issue in a way that highlights a lot of the needs, the urgency, and also the solidarity. So, yeah.
说这个非常重要就是说我们能够他就是刚刚加入，但是意识到这个维族在新疆受迫害的这个事情这么严重的事情，他也特别高兴对华援助协会呢，我们能够一起联手这个议题就是说向国际社会更多的公布，并且我们能够一起合作帮助。
And I know that my boss, Kaza Altai, is very grateful for your friendship. And he's sorry he can't be here today. It's Ramadan, so eating lunch is inconvenient.
所以他的老板的库扎就是因为现在是穆斯林的专业所以他没有方便来，但是他非常的支持，非常高兴一起合作。
But we look forward to working with everyone to define concrete goals, and we believe that we can really close the camps in 2 years if we work together. We can work together with you guys.
他说我们特别期待跟大家一起密切协作，我们也相信，就是说在2年之内呢，2年我们能够把中国的集中营给关闭。还是
Sure. My name is Nathan Weininger again. I'm with 21 Wilberforce. We're a Christian human rights NGO that works for the universal rights of religion, belief, and conscience for all people everywhere. We do this motivated out of our Christian faith, believing that no one should be harmed because of what they believe about God, that no one who bears the image of God should be harmed because of what they believe about that image. And so we're working together collaboratively on various issues around the world. We are a big believer in coalitions. My organization has put resources behind a title for someone with coalitions in their name, and that's me. And so I'm a huge believer in coalitions. I'm a huge believer in the power of working together. I'm a huge believer in the fact that oppressors and people who are trying to maintain power at the expense of human beings are very interested in divisions. They don't want you getting along. They don't want you talking to each other. They don't want you taking actions together. They certainly don't want you standing on stages in the U.S. Capitol together. And the best thing that you can do for the sake of the people that you personally care about, that you personally have relationships with, is reach out beyond those divisions that they're helping to foster. It is the biggest weapon you have, and it is the weapon that can leverage the power here in Washington the most. When you show up into a congressional office, when you show up into the State Department, when you show up into the White House with people who China is telling those people, well, they're terrorists, or they don't get along, or they're at odds. When you show up together, you say, no, China is harming all of us. The Communist Party, more properly, is harming all of us. It's much harder for people who are wanting to ignore these issues because of business interests or because of economics or because they have a ton of other things on their plate and this looks like just too big of a thing to tackle, it's much harder for them to ignore you. So I commend those of you who are working together in coalition. I know Frank Wolf worked with our organization for 4 years, and he has been arguing for this for a long time. And so the fact that Bob and Greg have gotten together and everyone else has rallied behind that and thrown their support and their ideas and their initiative, shaping together, co-messaging, doing events together, working collaboratively is absolutely vital. And 21 Wilberforce looks to continue to be a part of that. We are so grateful for the visionaries like Greg and Bob, and we're also grateful for the worker bees like Logan. So we're so glad that she's here. That's where being in Washington, having a presence in Washington, having a coordinating person in Washington is so important to actually making sure that that vision actually gains traction. And just from the work that I've already seen Logan do, I know that China Aid has a wonderful advocate for their work here. And because of China Aid's vision for collaboratively working for the Christian church, but for other groups as well, I know that both the church and those other groups have a powerful advocate in Logan here. And I'm very much looking forward to working with her and grabbing coffee with her tomorrow. So yeah.
So cut the coffee budget.
What?
Maybe reheat the coffee.
Yeah, I'm fine with leverage every red cent to confront Red China. So anyway, yeah. So we are looking forward to this. We're very grateful for it, and we look forward to be partnering on these things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. 这个21世纪维护服饰 summary. In my memory card is 5 gigabytes.维沃福斯呢，这个21世纪维沃福斯研究所它是个基督徒的这个主体的组织，但是他们也是就是为所有因着信仰受迫害、受限制，或者说有一些因着这个传扬这个就是人是按照上帝的形象造的就说这些所有的因为这个受迫害的他们都也是关注所以他很高兴我们就是 China Aid 能够我们在这里有一个实际的存在，并且是大家这个能够跟其他的团体密切的合作。所以他也承诺了，明天要给老板买咖啡说让我们咖啡的预算就不算了这就省下一些。Wilberforce, 21st century Wilberforce was birthed at China Aid, not China Aid, at Midland, Texas, our neighbor. So Randall always in public blaming me in room his retirement fund.
Yes. But it gave me a job, so thank you.
因为他这个机构呢，这个国际机构以前是Frank Wolf 议员，沃夫议员在他们那儿也工作了，这个退休之后就在他们那儿工作了4年刚刚离开，所以以前是诞生在我们 Texas 就是德州米德兰我们这个城市，他这个负责人呢是我们德州米德兰第一浸信会的这个主任牧师，现在呢全职的做这个事情，所以我们也非常高兴have a wonderful partner like 21st century Wilberforce. Thank you. So I know Logan is in safe hands. Yeah. Maybe we should. You have not introduced first, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm Sean Nelson. I'm legal counsel.
The ICC.
For ADF International.
Why did I say ICC? Yeah.
On global religious freedom.
Yeah.
And
ADF. 这个 ADF translate. ADF 呢是叫 Alliance Defending Freedom.
Yes.
In the past, we're at Arizona, right? The Scottsdale. Whenever we have a human rights lawyers delegation, we always end up the last stop before California trip. Is Scottsdale, and there are quite a few of your leaders are very involved.
Yeah, I know Mike Ferris, our CEO is very dedicated to international law and international human rights issues, and you know, I think the world of Bob and the work that China Aid and that he's done here. So I'm thrilled that y'all are here, and also thrilled to be working with Logan. I know I'm relatively new to DC as well. The last 7 months that I've been here as well, and you know, we're starting to advocate for prisoners of conscience with a religious freedom profile right now on the Hill, and trying to get more adopted. And so that's, I think, something where we would love to be able to support China Aid on that, and speak with you all about it, and with all of the groups. And so that's really something that's been made a priority for us. So I'm you know, really looking forward to working with you all more extensively on all those things. And thank everybody here in the room fighting for freedom and fundamental freedoms in China, fighting for everybody being able to believe what they might believe and live that out freely.
这个他这个机构的名字叫 Alliance Defending Freedom， 就是捍卫自由联盟啊，在美国算是一个比较大的就是捍卫宗教自由和良心自由。You have ADF also have some branches in different
Yeah,
countries, right?
so our international team, which I'm
他们
on,
有个国际的团队也有。
is headquartered in Vienna.
哦，对，他们国际的团队呢是总部设在奥地利的维也纳。
But we have offices at the United Nations, both in Geneva and New York.
我们在纽约和日内瓦都有他们的办公室。
And other major institutions, Strasbourg, Brussels, and then also a major office in India as well, where we've been combating a lot of the mob violence against the church there.
那么他们这个对像宗教自由的印度啊什么这些其他的国家他们有关注。对，I still remember our one of our last Chinese human rights lawyers delegation actually were sitting in the same conference here with Li Heping, Zhang Kai, not to be truthful, Li Heping, Zhang Kai, Li Fangping, quite we're sitting in the same conference room here some really years ago. And I still remember Zhang Kai was debating with Li Fangping. 就是当时张凯、李方平，我们那次组织了一个维权律师代表团，就在这个同一个这个会议室里面。我还记得张凯跟那个李方平他在那辩论因为李方平的简历里边写的是大律师叫什么？资深律师叫资深律师。然后这个张凯就说：“哎呀，说我什么时候也能熬上个叫资深律师为什么你们能叫资深律师，我不能叫资深律师？” So there was a kind of a very funny segment when that group of lawyers they're debating when can you be called senior lawyers, senior attorneys. One young attorney was complaining why I'm not called senior attorneys in their resume, and of course all of them, pretty much most of them, end up in prison, torture, that group. Not because China didn't like them, maybe part of it. But so we all went to Scottsdale and with Hall, John Hall, is that the leader, John CEO?
Let's see, back then it would have been, I think, Alan Sears.
Yeah, Alan Sears. Alan Sears. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael? 你可以讲中文。我不会讲中文。
You want me to say something?
Yeah.
It's a real privilege to be here, Bob. I'm so pleased with you bringing Logan here to Washington. It's wonderful. And you can just tell him my connection to China is I lived in China for a while, studied Chinese.
他在中国住过，
我在南京大学学习了，也就在台湾有一个 夏天的时候，在1989年的时候，在台湾，在高雄注册的。
高兴。
我非常喜欢中国，非常喜欢中国人。I hope that that your vision of helping China become a free country will be realized, and if I can be helpful in any way, please, you can count on me.
Yeah, well, certainly we have counting. And thank you for everyone of you has been playing a part. I think one day, when China is truly free in Tiananmen Square, we should have a statue of each one of you. Freedom.
A statue of the Chinese people.
Liberty, Statue of Liberty.
There we go. Yes, I like it. For China.
Yeah.
Yes, for China.
将来一个自由的中国应该在天安门广场把这些跟中国的为中国的自由努力的是吧？给他们塑一个就是中国自由的这个鼓励者的这个像是吧？专门。Yeah. So maybe some of these artists can help.
Yes.
我们在座的艺术家就可以雕塑一下，是吧？
Start thinking now.
可以做一个雕塑。